Welcome to this episode of the Context Podcast by Proof:Geist. I'm your host, Martha Zink, and this is where we get to talk about whatever is going on in the Claris and FileMaker world. In this episode, Eric Luce from our own Proof:Geist joins me to talk about ProofKit, a collection of tools that are perfect for developers who want to build JavaScript applications that need to connect with FileMaker. All right, I have Eric Luce, who's a senior software engineer for Proof:Geist, so I have the pleasure of working with him all the time, luckily. We are going to talk about ProofKit. So back in March, which feels like forever ago, Eric presented at Engage in Austin and talked about ProofKit. But let's kind of start from the very beginning. What is ProofKit? Pretend I know nothing. What is ProofKit?
Okay.
ProofKit.
ProofKit. I like to say ProofKit is a collection of tools for FileMaker-aware JavaScript applications. Okay. So
very specific.
Very specific, I know. But, there's lots of tools for different kinds of JavaScript things. And so, us FileMaker developers, we all have, there's this deep curiosity of like, I want my data on the web somehow. I might need a customer portal. I might want someone to fill out a form. There's a bunch of different reasons why our custom applications need to be on the web. And so a lot of FileMaker developers are looking for this kind of solution. And what they've been told or what they've maybe felt before is that it's just too hard. Like either there's too many options, or I have to write too much raw code that I don't understand. And it's just kind of overwhelming for a lot of people, right?
Yeah. Absolutely.
And the funny thing, and I look at that problem and I'm like, no, it's actually easy. Sometimes it's easier to work in the JavaScript world for me than the FileMaker world. And I stop and I think, why is that? Right?
Yeah.
People say it's because I'm too smart, and I don't think that's the case. I think it's just that I've had more experience with it.
Okay,
right?
But you are very smart, and you are very good at this, so all those things.
Well, thank you. But what I've realized, like, I just had all this experience, and so initially, it's like if I can give someone a tool that gives them confidence that you can do this too, I think it might open up their eyes, like your eyes. Have you tried ProofKit?
I have not tried. No, I haven't yet. But maybe after this one I will.
Okay. I will be convincing you to give it a try and see.
Excellent.
Maybe it's not so hard to make a web app as you thought.
Okay. All right. Well, that's good. So the question would be, why haven't I created a web app, right? Like, what's been my barrier? And it's because I don't know where to start. It's like I know what I want, right? So like a good example would be a customer portal, right? I want some of the data that's in my FileMaker system to make it out into the world so that someone can see it. Maybe it's a work order or something.
Yeah.
A tech needs to see it. So you're saying ProofKit is where I start?
ProofKit is a great place to start.
Okay.
Yes.
All right. Tell me more. Why is that a good place to start?
So there's lots of, like I said, there's ProofKit is not just one thing. There's lots of things about it. But I think the primary thing that people think about, and what I presented on at Engage, is the CLI tool, the CLI portion of ProofKit. And that just stands for Command Line Interface. So the ProofKit CLI will spin up a brand new web app for you from scratch. It'll create everything that you need on your computer, and it will connect it to your FileMaker database. It will just set everything up for you so that if you have no experience of JavaScript applications before, you can run this CLI and it walks you through step by step. Enter your FileMaker server, type here. Okay, select the file, select your layout, give me your credentials. It'll set all that up for you. And then you get a working web app that gives you connection to that FileMaker database. And then as you continue working through the web app, there's additional commands that you can run in your terminal that add an additional page or connect to another FileMaker layout or even deploy it to the web. All those little bits of tools. So okay. Does that kind of explain, right? Like that's how you would use it, right? If you're brand new, know nothing, but you want to connect to FileMaker, it's a great place to start.
Okay. So if ProofKit is the starting point for me to get stuff in the web, what am I working in when I'm working with ProofKit? Am I in FileMaker? Am I in something else? Where's my keyboard and my mouse?
Yeah. So primarily you'll be working in a code editor. So okay. ProofKit is what's so great about the way we built these tools is that it lets you write the raw code, which sounds really scary. I know. And if you don't like working in the terminal, that can be a little scary for some people. But if you realize that's where the web world is, right? Is writing raw code. And the other benefit of that is that artificial intelligence tools are really smart at writing code.
Yeah.
And so if you work in a code editor, especially with an AI assistant right there on the sidebar, you can talk to the AI assistant to help you with your code, help understand it, or help make new things that are maybe not included in the default ProofKit templates, you know? And yeah, that's where you'll be, is in the code editor, either writing code or talking with an AI is
Cool.
probably the best way to think about it.
I've played a little bit with Cursor, and it's a totally different experience, but it's also, maybe intuitive is wrong, but because of AI, it's also very workable. You know, I think of FileMaker developers as very people that like to get their hands dirty and try stuff out, and it's kind of a playground in that way. And when I played with it, I was able to get something. Maybe it wasn't exactly what I wanted. It was kind of my first pass at trying. But,
Yeah.
but it felt in reach, which was nice, right? So now you're telling me that I had this in reach thing, which now has tools on it that will make it a little bit easier and a better experience, is what I'm hearing.
Exactly. In fact, I don't know if you know this, but well, you do know that we recently switched email platforms here at ProofGeist. It's kind of an internal, behind the curtain thing for people listening. But basically, we had this collaborative email platform, and we had links to it. That we had like links in our messages so we could reference an email in some other document or whatever. But when we migrated, all those links don't work anymore. So our colleague Mike, who's over all of services, he was building a tool, and he built a FileMaker database that took all of our exported data from our old platform, and he put it in a FileMaker database. And he's like, well, now I need an easy way for people to like take this link and look it up in FileMaker. And he used ProofKit and entirely AI. I don't think he coded any actual code. It was all AI, and he's got a proof of concept working. And this is just an internal tool. Like it doesn't have to be too fancy, but it was enough that he got something actually working. And he showed me this web app. You paste the link in and it actually opens the other email app if it can find the email. Right. So
that's awesome.
It's really, really cool. Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah.
Well, I like the idea of anything that's a shortcut or is going to get me, it's the learning curve, right? I don't want to get stuck in a learning curve, and I don't consider myself a JavaScript developer. It's not what I'm looking to do at the moment. I really like the FileMaker stuff. And so what I'm hearing is that you're giving me the powers of doing JavaScript stuff without having to learn all of that, go through all of that learning, right? Okay.
Yeah.
Now, I want to talk more about the FileMaker developers, but just for a second, do you think is ProofKit only for FileMaker developers, or do you think are there other people who would benefit from using that toolkit?
Well, I don't usually consider myself a FileMaker developer anymore because I work so much in the web code, and I use ProofKit every single day. So I would say no, not just for FileMaker developers.
Okay.
As I mentioned, ProofKit is just a collection of all kinds of tools to interact with FileMaker and FileMaker data. So the CLI, I think, is very much aimed at those FileMaker developers who want to start something up. But the rest of the tools that ProofKit provides are really for JavaScript developers, or maybe for the FileMaker developers who become JavaScript developers using the CLI.
Got it.
Right. So for example, we have a data API package that's part of ProofKit. And that's like a standalone module that helps you connect to the FileMaker data API, and there's some type generation tools, and we can get into like why that's so cool. But that's like a tool for anyone to use if you're building a web app that needs FileMaker data, for example.
Okay. So that's connecting through the data API. So are you basically just making it easier? Like you're giving me an interface, right, to connect things together?
Exactly right. Yeah. So
nice.
If I'm in the web app and I want FileMaker data and I want to use the data API, you use this ProofKit FMDAPI package, and it gets the data, and it makes it really easy to do so.
Nice. Okay, cool. Now you mentioned data API, but also Claris has been talking a lot about OData and connecting with data through OData. So is that something that's happening here too, or what can you tell me about that?
I have thought very deeply about building a FM OData package within ProofKit, just like FMDAPI. It's a little bit tricky to do at the moment. It doesn't quite do the same thing. Like I'm trying to get the right abstraction, So it's definitely something that I'm thinking about. But it's not quite there yet. I will say we are using OData behind the scenes with the ProofKit auth adapter that we're using, this new one. So we are using OData in some places, but primarily just in our day-to-day work, we're still using data API.
Okay. Well, and by the way you just said that, it sounds like you're still working on, like you keep growing ProofKit. So is that true that you're
Absolutely.
actively developing in it? Sweet.
Yeah, like I said, I use ProofKit every day. So if I run into an issue with it, or if I find like some other limitation where I want it to be better, if it's a tool that connects to FileMaker, it goes to ProofKit. And so
Nice.
we build it so because I have to use it for lots of projects anyway.
Got it.
So
Okay.
I might as well publish it so that my projects can use it and anyone else can use it
Okay.
if they're using ProofKit tools.
Now, for anyone who's listening, this is probably the time where the question is, how much does it cost to use ProofKit? So, do you want to talk about that?
ProofKit is free and open source. It is all, even the whole documentation, GitHub repo, everything is on GitHub for free. The packages are published on NPM, the Node Package Manager, for free. It's just open source software.
Okay, cool. So open source is great. That means you can always keep adding to it. People can take the pieces that they like or don't like, but they get to use the toolkit for free, which is great.
Yeah.
Can you tell me a little bit about you talked about CLI, but what are some of the other tools, or what are some of the other benefits that you can think of when using ProofKit?
So I'd say the primary one is the data API package. I don't know. We had a Proof+Geist data API package that we've been using for years and years, that I just recently kind of renamed to be part of the ProofKit ecosystem, but it's the same package. So that's one package. The other package that we have within ProofKit is a type generation package, because one thing I should mention about ProofKit tools in general, one of the core focuses that I have for developing them is that they should be strongly type safe. That's the word, which means that they use TypeScript under the hood, and they are as intelligent as they can be about TypeScript, so that your code editor can give you helpful error messages as you learn how to use it. So if you're unfamiliar with kind of TypeScript in general, like, let's say, I don't know, Martha, have you used JavaScript at all ever in the past?
It very, very little. So let's just say no.
So just a no. Okay. One of if you have, just for people listening, you maybe will remember it being frustrating because you would write some JavaScript code, you'd load it in a web browser, and then nothing would happen, or something unexpected would happen, and you'd open up your console and you'd see a red error that says something like, null is undefined, some error where it's like it just didn't work. Oh, and then turns out you just misspelled the field name of the or something dumb like that, very little stuff. So what TypeScript allows you to do is it checks your JavaScript as you're writing code and gives you little red squiggly lines underneath where you spelled something wrong, or whether you called the wrong function or whatever. So for us at ProofKit, and for me especially, like, TypeScript is an absolute game changer. Like, if we need TypeScript to work well for us to be able to write apps more quickly and safely, where we know they won't throw these weird errors, right? Right. So all of the tools that we build in ProofKit use that at the strong foundation level. So one of the packages is a type generator. And what that will do is it will look into your FileMaker file, figure out what fields are on your layout, and then generate TypeScript types in your code base, so that all the way down, not just the data API might return some list of fields, it'll actually tell you, no, this is exactly the field name as it will be returned from the data API, such that even if you just spell it wrong, or if somebody changes the field name later, your code base will be able to detect that and show you a little red error,
Yeah. Is that just out of curiosity?
Yeah.
So if I know that it's layout based, so it's all about the objects, the fields on that layout.
That's
If I'm like, oh shoot, I forgot I needed this thing, and I add a new field, how does that work with ProofKit or with TypeScript?
Yeah, so there's a command that you run every time you want to update your types. It's just called, I run the type gen command, basically. Got it. And the documentation kind of shows you how to do this, but that would be the flow, right? Is if you make any changes to FileMaker, you rerun type gen, it'll update the code in your code base, and then you may or may not get TypeScript errors everywhere that tell you exactly what changed and where to fix it. Right?
Got it. Okay, cool. Nice.
And the other great thing about TypeScript that I have to mention is that AI knows how to read TypeScript errors.
Oh, nice.
Right?
That's
so
excellent.
like if our libraries that we're using are very type safe, They're strongly type safe. They don't just say, yeah, I don't know what this type is. Like everything has a type and it's as correct as it possibly can be. Now the AI knows how to use the library, and it can make, and if it just guesses, because sometimes AI just guesses. It's really funny.
That's what I've learned.
But what it'll do is it'll guess, and then it'll say, oh, it looks like I made a type error. Oh, I'm sorry. Let me fix that. Right. And so like, even if it guesses wrong, it can fix itself because of TypeScript. So very cool.
Nice.
Anyway.
That's awesome. Okay, cool.
So
any other tools worth mentioning?
Yes. So there's two other main ones that are in there. There's a web viewer package and a better auth adapter package. So web viewer, which, I don't know how much we'll get into that, but, sometimes we want to build like just really rich experiences within a FileMaker. I don't necessarily need to go to the web, but it'd be nice if I could build like a calendar layout or a Kanban or some scheduler thing, or just, some other kind of unique visual interface. There's a lot you can do with web technology. And so the web viewer package provides a really amazing way to like build web viewer apps inside of FileMaker.
Nice.
Using all the same tools and even the same data API calls, right? So you can use like the data API script step in FileMaker, and then all your code is calling the same functions as it would if it were on the web. So like a lot of these are really shared, and that's a cool piece.
That's awesome.
The Better Auth adapter is the newest tool that is currently in beta, but we are using it for an app that we're currently developing. And basically, it's an adapter to use FileMaker as your database for the Better Auth app authentication library that is just out there open source. It's like not related to FileMaker at all, right? And so what I said is I want to use this amazing authentication library, and I can go in more into that if we have time later. But I want to use FileMaker, right? I don't want to spin up a whole. Better Auth requires that you have a database of some kind, but I don't want to spin up a different Postgres database or MySQL. I don't want to spin up a database for my web app if I'm connecting to FileMaker. I want to just use FileMaker. So this adapter lets you do that. And so basically it makes that your users and your OAuth 2 tokens, say if you want people to sign in with Google or sign in with some social provider, you have to store those tokens when they log in.
Yeah.
It manages all of that and lets you store in FileMaker, right?
Oh, nice. Okay. And that's authentication stuff. So are you doing that through accounts and logins and permission sets, or is this like a user table? What does the setup look like for that?
Yeah. So maybe I should talk about Better Auth for just a second, just more
Sure.
broadly, right? So this is not specific to FileMaker. So let's just take our FileMaker hat off for a second. Better Auth is a open source library, and it's also very type safe. And they call it like an authentication framework. One of the really great things about it is there's a giant plugin system that says, I want users to be able to log in with email password, or I want them to log in with a magic link, or maybe I want to log in via a social provider, right? Like you can pick and choose what you want to do, and you construct from all their plugins how you want to handle auth, and you define all of that in its configuration file. Then what Better Auth will do is it'll say, okay, I see that you've, and I'm sorry, I should mention, there's also like an organizations plugin. So if you want like a multi-tenant structure of your web app where you can have users in organizations can have teams within their organization, like all of that is all supported via plugins for Better Auth. Okay. So we've got this great setup, and you define all the config, you get it all set up, and then you tell Better Auth, okay, this is how I want my auth defined. Now, what tables and fields are needed to support that structure? And it will generate a bunch of SQL statements that you run against your database to make them work, right? So to get this to work with FileMaker, this is where we actually are using OData behind the scenes, because OData actually allows you to create tables and fields via the API. So the Better Auth adapter lets us do all those amazing things that Better Auth would normally do, but also with FileMaker, including creating the tables and fields that you need in FileMaker to do it, all via OData.
That's awesome.
Very cool. And the other thing that it lets you do is that you can rename the table. So if you already have a user table that you just want to like link to, you just have to tell it the name of that table, and then it might add some fields to that table. But otherwise, you can now fully customize your whole authentication stack. Say I want to link this user, or maybe it's an organization is linked to this other record, right, in my work orders table. it's just FileMaker now. It's everything's in my database, and I can do all those things. And when I get back the user from BetterAuth, I get back the ID from my FileMaker table, not some random ID from some other auth provider.
Right.
You know?
That's awesome.
Yeah.
So the biggest benefit I hear there is that you don't have to spin up a new thing to make this authentication work with a web app. And it works with existing systems in that you can just use ProofKit to basically bring in the right stuff or connect to the right stuff that's already existing, right?
Yes. Yeah.
Cool.
But not just that, it's also very, very customizable, right?
Oh, okay.
So, because like I said, you could pick and choose how you want users to log in.
Yeah.
For the app that we're actually, I'm actively developing right now, we were meeting with a client. They said they wanted it set up. So we spun it up for them. And I got it working with an email password login, just the standard basics, all that supported. And the next meeting they came back and they said, actually, we want users to just be able to enter their email and we send them a link to log in. And I said, no problem, 10-minute change. And all of a sudden it works, right? And that's because of BetterAuth. So that's why it's so useful. And I'm so excited to get it integrated into the rest of the toolkit.
Very cool.
Yeah.
Okay. So we've talked, I mean, you've mentioned a couple of use cases or places where this works, but big picture, we're saying about taking FileMaker data in some format and putting it onto the web. You've talked about even within FileMaker using it to create code for a web viewer. So those are two very distinct ways, which is awesome because I've needed both of those, and you've built both of those for me for my clients. But the other thing you mentioned alongside the tools are templates. And so I want to talk a little bit about use cases and some of the templates that are in there. And if you can just help us visualize what are examples of things that you've created with ProofKit.
Yeah. So templates is honestly, it's one of the trickiest things about the ProofKit CLI that I've wanted to grow, because we have a basic examples of a table that you can just load a bunch of data in. And there's ideas for other templates that we've wanted to use. I will say within ProofKit itself, it does not have a lot of templates now, but that's one of the things we're actively developing. There's by the time this publishes, it'll be hopefully close to ready, but we'll just see how much time I have to get it published. There is a major, it's a major overhaul of how the templates are working within ProofKit. So I just want to at least preface that. But what I will say, if we can talk a little bit about the future of what's coming, because I think it's very exciting, how you build web apps is each project is unique. So I've always struggled, which template do I really want in ProofKit, right? So we've built a lot of things, ProofKit as the base, but using the templates from ProofKit, it's maybe not, because there's just so many, each client, each project needs something just a little bit different. But hey, here's an idea. What if we could use this new thing I've been hearing a lot about called AI to generate the things I need, right?
Yeah. Say more.
So, I tell you more? Yeah. So let's take our FileMaker hats off again for a second. If you dive into the web world and you look at how is AI helping people build new components, new templates, new pages, there's lots of ways that it's doing that. A lot of the models are just good. You can tell it what you want and do it. One of the leading tools in this is a tool called V0. Right? It's a generation tool, kind of one of these app builders that says, I want to generate this thing. And the cool integration that it has is you're in a web browser, you're just kind of playing with stuff. You're saying, I want this new page to look like this and whatever. And then when you're ready to integrate it into your project, there's a copy button, and it's a CLI that you paste in your project, and it will download all the generated files, because it could be not just one file, it might be a whole suite of tools. Or files or functions or pages that it generated as part of your little prompting session. It'll download those into your project and install them where they need to go. Now, wouldn't it be cool if I could do that in a ProofKit project, right?
Yeah.
So that's kind of that's what's coming. And I've got some basic things working where you can spin up a ProofKit project that's connected to FileMaker. Then you can go to these other tools like V0 or whatever to just generate whatever you need, right? And paste them into your ProofKit project. The whole CLI, the download thing, there's a format for that, kind of like a protocol that ProofKit is going to be adopting so that we can use that. And what that also means is that we can publish more components and functions and templates on our own website, the ProofKit website, and you'll just download them from there.
Nice.
So I don't know if that, I feel like I may be avoiding your original question there, but
No, that's helpful. But yeah, so I think going from there, so I think the next question, or maybe it was the original question, part of it is what are some things you've built with ProofKit? Can you tell some stories around those?
yeah, so I did. I mentioned earlier, there's the tool that Mike built. Just this internal like tool. So
Yep.
that's been a cool example. What we're working on right now is just a customer portal. It's actually for their It's not so much customers as for their technicians, right? Where they want to be able to log in, see the status of some stuff, right? So we built lots of apps, I guess, within those realms, as well, and then some other more internal tools where maybe it's like has to work on your phone, right? So we built some really mobile focused UIs where as these like field investigators or whatever are going around, they need to check on some things. They need to tap a button, add a photo, okay, snap that in, add that to the project, all these kinds of things. I'm trying to think of what else I built recently because I've been sucked away on all sorts of different projects.
Yeah, I think the ones you're talking about really resonate with the ones that you've helped me with, which is a lot of it is around mobile access when we have no control over the device, right? Because there's always the alternative, like, oh, just use FileMaker Go, and we have clients where we do use FileMaker Go, right? We're a big fan of using what we've got. But sometimes we've got Android users, right? Sometimes it's the one Android user that takes FileMaker Go out of the equation. Or that everybody has their own device or whatever it is.
Or just customers. Like you don't want to have to tell a customer to download a FileMaker Go app, right?
Go download this thing. Yeah. And then click a bunch of links. Yeah, I think that's spot on. So it's bringing that native web experience to anybody, right? Which is the golden standard these days, obviously, right? Nobody wants to necessarily download something if they don't have to. The other one is that you get to leverage a bunch of existing packages out there. I feel like every time I ask you for a question, like now it's just, I'm doing it just to be funny, but it's like, hey, can we do this? Because I know the answer is yes. Right. But it's usually that you go out and find a library or package or whatever it is that you need to build the thing that you want, right? That's like the speed of web technology. It moves very quickly. And there's
and not just that. It's like, if it's not out there, it's just a common pattern that everyone's done and AI can do it. You just ask AI to build it for you. And it's like, oh, now this thing that didn't exist does exist for our specific use case. Yeah.
Nice. Okay, cool. Yeah. And I guess that's really the other piece, which is that you get to take advantage of the web-based developer tools in the world, which include AI, which includes vibe coding and all these other things. And again, make good decisions and, don't vibe code everything. Mike's internal app sounds perfect. A perfect use case for that, but still, you get the assistance and the help of the other tools that are out there in the world.
Exactly. Well, it's just the thing. I mean, I can type pretty fast, but AI still types faster.
Yeah.
Right? So like, if I can describe, and I've switched to using a voice to text kind of model where I hold a button and I just talk into the chat box, right, and then it generates code because that's just the fastest way to get the code written.
Yeah, that's cool.
Yeah.
Let's see. I'm trying to think if there were any other ones where we talked about using it for our clients.
I know that other members of our team have used it. I tend to use like the tools, like the data API tool is what I use all the time, or the web viewer package, for example, just if I want to communicate between FileMaker web viewer and FileMaker,
Yeah.
Yeah.
I like the distinction you're making that it's a collection of tools, because I think my original understanding of ProofKit was that it was the CLI was the thing, right? Like, you don't know where to start. You don't have experience in this. Here's the thing that will start for you, right? And then you'll have the right pieces in place, and then you can, use these other tools to help you get to the right place. But I love this idea. Well, one, I love that you're using it, every day, every week or whatever at work, which means that it's like an expert can use it, right? It's a shortcut that an expert can use. So I think there's a huge gain there. And those pieces are pieces that nobody wants to do over and over again, right? Like, it's built once and then you don't want to have to rebuild it again. So the fact that it's modular, like, that's really nice, reusable. It's cool.
Yeah.
So you presented about this at Engage. What was the reaction from developers when you showed off? I know you were focused a lot on the CLI piece, but like, what was the reaction from the crowd?
I got a pretty good reception at Engage. It sounds like lots of people were excited about web in general, right? And then a few people tried the tool and they've told me, oh yeah, I got this thing to work. It's really cool, right? the CLI, as I think I've mentioned, like CLI is very opinionated, very narrow focused. Here is how you do these things, right? Which is sometimes like it's not always the right choice. Like that's why the lower level tools exist. But for those of us who just don't know where to get started, that's all you want. You just want, nice. I need something to work right now.
Yeah.
Right. So here we go. Let's do it. Let's get it.
Well, and I was thinking about that. You mentioned how the templates are, maybe there aren't as many templates as you'd like, and hopefully that's going to change in the future. But templates are a great way to just get your hello world moment, right? Like, hey, yes. Here's the template. Let me try to get this data from FileMaker somewhere on the web. So it's nice to know that that's there, because I think even if you gave me the thing that created the base, but then I didn't know what was next, that would be tough for me, right? So the fact that there's a template I can lock into is really nice.
And we like we basically have, there's versions of a different table template. Like that's basically what's included in there now. But as I kind of shift the base of the app that the CLI generates to be compatible with this like new standard or protocol for adding files to projects, we're going to add a lot more, right? And we'll make it auto updating, and and we'll publish them on the documentation site, or you can generate them with V0, for example, right? And it'll just all work. Yeah, which is so cool.
So with some of the projects that you've worked on, let's see if I can say this right. Are you connecting FileMaker? Are you taking FileMaker data and putting it to the web, and that's kind of the end of the story? Or are you also interacting with other software, other databases, anything else? Like how broad are some of the projects that you've built with ProofKit?
Yeah, that's a good question. So sometimes there's a FileMaker database and another database involved, right? And so sometimes that's a matter of like, how do we want to push this data out of a FileMaker database into a Postgres database, for example, or we use Supabase a lot, which is Postgres under the hood. So there's like some data synchronization projects that we do with that. And then our app can decide, where do I want to go? Do I want to go to the Supabase? Do I want to go to FileMaker data? And they can kind of decide. And then there are plenty of integrations too. So I think one of the apps, it's been a while now since I've worked on this app, but they built like a really interesting Slack integration, right? So that as things happen, it actually creates a Slack channel and adds specific people to it, and so on. So like that's a good example. A lot of email service integrations. That's right. Awesome. So like, because that's a key part of authentication, is usually you need to send an email to someone. Yeah. So we integrate with email services. I mean, it's everything. It's the short answer.
Yeah.
I'm trying to think of some more examples, but yeah.
I think that's great. I know that the Claris platform itself is growing, and they've got a lot of pieces to it. But I think Claris would agree that the web is just as important to this world and our platform, right? Because it's part of the story. It's part of the business reality, right? And so I love that it's just bringing that into the fold and connecting FileMaker as part of that ecosystem. It doesn't have to be FileMaker as an island, which I think it's had that issue for a while, is that IT gets a little worried that FileMaker is this standalone thing. So you're bringing it in. Whenever you're building something that's going to go to the web, or do you think of FileMaker in that case as a data source? Is it really, I mean, you're not worried about the UI in that specific case, right? Because you're building a new UI for people to interact with it in a lot of these stories.
Yeah, it's a little bit more than a data source, but okay. It is primarily a data source, I would say, because you can do things like run scripts, right? And I can run a script when things happen. So like that's a good example of like the email provider kind of idea. Like if you already have an amazing email script that's fairly generic in your FileMaker solution, and you want to use your FileMaker server to send those emails, then if I want to send an email from the web app, I'll just call a FileMaker script to do it. Right. Nice. So, yeah. We do those kind of things as well. So it just depends on, like, when I'm working on it, if it's me by myself, I'll probably write more web code because that's where I'm comfortable. Mm-hmm. But if I'm working with a FileMaker developer, then I will say, hey, when someone submits this form, I'm going to send you a JSON object and run a script. And you tell me what script you want to run, and that'll be that. And now FileMaker is back in the fold doing whatever it wants to do, So you can do a lot of powerful things with that, I think.
That's awesome. And I can't think of any project that we've worked on where the web component got rid of the FileMaker component. In fact, it was just like an addition to it, right? It was like there's a use case for the web piece, and then there's a use case for the FileMaker piece, the FileMaker UI and all that.
Which a lot of our clients I found really loved, right? Because they love FileMaker, And I've had one client several years ago when they first started with us, they were dead set on getting rid of FileMaker. They, for some reason, they got it in their head that like FileMaker is not good enough for us, and we have to move off of it, you know, and it's going to take forever. We're going to do it, right? And we kept working with them, and it was only recently they finally realized, hey, wait a minute, do we have to get rid of FileMaker? It seems like it's working pretty good for. And we're like, no, you're fine. Like, right? FileMaker is doing what it's doing, and it's doing really great things. Like, you don't have to get rid of it, and you can still use this amazing new web technology stuff, right?
Yeah.
You know, I think that was I don't see that quite as much anymore, but I think a while ago, you know, when web was becoming more and more popular, there was a lot of that question in the FileMaker community of like, well, can FileMaker really do, like, isn't it too slow, or doesn't, you know, like people have these concerns, but I'm hearing that less and less now, because people are realizing FileMaker, especially because the advancements that Claris itself has made to the FileMaker platform, we can use FileMaker. It can live right up there, and we don't have to move off. Everything we love about FileMaker is still there. So yeah, it's great.
That's great. Yeah, I think not having to get rid of something that, especially for so many of our clients, FileMaker's been ingrained in their as part of their process for so long, and it does take time and money and effort, and a lot of effort to move away from something that's core to your business.
Yeah, and it's just sometimes it's really not worth it, because like anytime you have a big change like that, like there's a lot of risk of things breaking.
Yeah.
And so
I think one of my favorite things that you touched on was this idea of using ProofKit to bring stuff into a web viewer, because that happens a lot for us. Is like the FileMaker system's working great. It actually is perfect for their in-house users, their sales reps, or their schedulers, or whatever, or whoever it might be. But they just need this one feature that just FileMaker isn't great at from a UI perspective. Like they want that web feel, right? They want drag and drop. They want something that's a little bit more flexible. And it's been so awesome to just be like, yeah, we can just add that. You'll just click this button, just like all your other buttons, but now you're going to get your scheduling tool.
Exactly.
Yeah. That's awesome. So yeah, we put the right thing in the right place. I think that's the part that I like, is that it kind of can go either way. That's awesome. So if somebody wanted to try ProofKit, where would they go?
The website is proofkit.dev.
Okay.
And that will have links to all the different packages, some getting started guides. There'll be links to other videos where I've talked about it in the past, as well as links to a community forum post where you can ask questions, or links to the GitHub if you want to dive into the source code, if you want to get real nerdy. So it's all there, proofkit.dev.
Cool. Okay. All right. And sounds like updates are happening, and you've got some things that are going to be either released soon-ish, depending on when this goes live. But there's some great stuff coming, which is really exciting. Okay.
Yes. I will say it's probably going to be version 1.2. So if you see 1.2 and you're listening to this in the past, then you know these are the new cool things I'm talking about.
Awesome. That sounds perfect. Okay, cool. All right. So let's see. So my homework is to go play with ProofKit and vibe code something better than Mike did.
Oh, sure.
And
the trickiest part is finding the project. Like usually it's like you don't have you need a thing you need to play with.
Right.
So.
You need a problem to solve, right?
You need a problem to solve.
So my first homework assignment is, what problem am I solving? Second homework assignment is to build it better than Mike would.
Yes, there you go.
Perfect. I love it. And I think if I'm not wrong, Mike is probably like a longtime listener, but never a guest. So maybe him and I, the three of us, can come battle it out and talk about what we built.
That would be a fun next episode. Is Martha and Mike try ProofKit, and Eric watches in agony. No.
Why would they do that?
No.
Okay. I'll pitch it. I'll see how Mike feels about it, but 50-50 chance that we go with it.
Yeah. I mean, I'm hoping the way Mike described, like, because there are some AI rules that are built in, like when you install a project, that'll help the AI guide it towards some stuff. It's not, I don't want to sugarcoat it too much. It's a great tool, but it's not like a end all be all solution. You're still gonna have to write a little bit of code. It's just that the AIs are so good now that it can help you do that. And just if you can learn to lean into those a little bit, you're going to go a lot farther than you thought. and my hope is if you try ProofKit, you'll realize, well, it wasn't that bad.
Right. It's doable. I could try again. Right.
Exactly.
That's really what you want.
Exactly.
That's awesome.
Exactly.
Well, I love it. I will absolutely try it. I will find a problem and I will absolutely try it. It's not hard to find one nearby.
That's right.
And
They're always walking down the street.
they're just always around. But this is awesome. Thank you for talking about it. I'm so glad that the reception was good at Engage. I know you've talked about it since then too. Hopefully we'll put links to, accessing ProofKit so that people can go check it out. And hopefully you'll get some community posts and other things so that you can get some feedback too.
Yeah, sounds great.
All right. Well, thank you for making time for this. This was awesome. I will see you on the other side of some Zoom meeting. All right. Thanks. Thanks for listening to this episode of the Context Podcast brought to you by ProofGeist. If you enjoyed it, be sure to subscribe, and we'd love it if you shared with a friend. Also, we'd love to hear from you. Share your thoughts or questions at hello@proofgeist.com. Until next time.